A word of warning, this podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes some strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to a special edition of True Crime Daily, the podcast. I'm your host, Ana Garcia. We have a huge update on a case that we have been following. The murders of 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German of Delphi, Indiana. Newly released court records allege that there has been a confession in this case, and it was captured during a prison phone call. The girls were found dead near a bridge in 2017, and the case stalled for 5 years until the arrest of a local man, Richard Allen, in October of 2022. Newly released court records claim Richard Allen has confessed to the killings in a phone conversation with his wife, a call he made from prison that was recorded. It's just one of the bombshells in these newly released records. We're recording this on Thursday, June 29th of 2023. With us to explain what all of this means is journalist Susan Hendricks, who has been covering this case from the beginning and has written a book about the murders called Down the Hill, My Descent into the Double Murder in Delphi. Susan, thank you so much for being with us at this last minute. You know, more than 100 records have been released. It was a lot to go through, but the headline here is this alleged confession. Do you believe it to be true?
It's good to see you, Anna. Always love coming on. I was shocked, as most people were, in terms of we heard whispers of a possible confession, and it was mentioned in the hearing back in June, but we didn't know what it was. Was it someone who was in that prison with him? Now that we hear in the documents that it's his wife and his mother on several occasions on communication with the prison. And you know, prisoners who are in there are alerted to the fact, and there's a big sign that says all of your conversations will be recorded. So it makes me wonder, did he want to confess? Would he do it again? And the reaction by the defense attorneys makes it appear that no, that wouldn't happen, because their actions and Richard Allen's appearance and behavior changed right after that phone call with his wife and again with his mother. And the confessions were really shocking to me. I do believe it to be true. I do believe there's enough evidence that puts him there on the bridge with the girls. I think it took close to 6 years, but when they finally got the evidence, and we're not privy to all of it, that this is the guy. But for him to confess, it also makes me wonder, will this go to trial? Will there be a plea deal? Will they backtrack and say, look, he wouldn't have said that if the prison conditions weren't so bad?
What's interesting in the documents is that his attorneys claim that his mental and physical condition have deteriorated so much that it calls into question whether he even knew what he was saying at the time. In fact, and we're going to show these photos, because what's interesting in the documents released, Susan, the courts released 2 photos of Richard Allen, one looking healthy right before he was arrested holding his chihuahua. And then there's a photo of him in court where he looks disheveled. He looks skinny. It looks like he may have drooled on his shirt. He does not look well. I mean, truly, some people pretend. I do believe this man is not well. But what that means, whether it's the pressure of it, whether there's underlying mental illness, we don't know. It's such a turn of events, because remember when he was first arrested, he wrote this letter to the judge saying, I need help getting an attorney. I don't know why I'm here. I'm innocent. I haven't done any of this. And to see that change, the question will be, will it be admissible? Is this truly an admission of guilt, or are these the rants of a man who's unstable, which, Susan, in those documents, I couldn't believe this. They said that he has been eating, that Richard Allen has been eating paper, that he has been wetting the paper, documents given to him by his attorneys, and then eating the paper, refusing food, and not sleeping for days.
Yeah, it was bizarre. And as you know, we had both gone through the large amount of paperwork to finally unseal documents and to kind of assess what they really meant, what they said, what was uncovered from his home was shocking to me. But to the point of where, yes, he seems unwell, but the dates of that seems suspicious to me, meaning right after that phone call with his wife, he no longer had communication. That's where he started to deteriorate. Now, it could be a direct correlation to finally maybe admitting it, and maybe, yes, he is deteriorating. I obviously, I'm not a doctor. I can't assess whether he is or not, but I've heard people say, look, prison, it's rough. If he did do it, could it be guilt? Could it be the fact that he finally told the truth to his wife and mother? But it appears that the attorneys are trying to do an about face based on the dates, meaning the emergency order, trying to tell the judge, look, he needs to be moved immediately, and this is why. But at that June hearing, they had the warden on the stand testify saying, look, we give them something to change into every day, kind of disputing and refuting the fact that they're treating him harshly, that if he was in jail in Carroll County, he would actually get less time. He's given an iPad there, treated better than other prisoners. But as you know, Anna, innocent till proven guilty, he shouldn't really be in that type of prison while he's awaiting trial. But,
right. He's in a prison and he's not in a jail. There was a big issue that the county could not protect him to the level of protection that he needed from himself and from others. So he's actually in a prison, a state prison. And his attorneys did ask to have him moved. So far, that hasn't worked. Whether he's pretending or not, he doesn't look well. I mean, there's just no question about the physical deterioration. And look, it's just not a normal thing to be eating paper. It's bizarre activity. Now,
I know we laugh because we're thinking, what could this happen so fast? Because we did hear at a few hearings, there was one back in November where in court, he looked at his wife and mouthed, I love you, I believe. And so there was kind of eye contact communication. This hearing in June 15th, very different, a faraway look, not communicating with his wife. And we do know through the paperwork that she hung up abruptly after he said that about Abby and Libby, confessing, so says the documents. So I wonder what has changed. Is it his mental state? Does it have anything to do with where he is now, the prison? Does it have anything to do with that? Or is it where he is in terms of admitting to his wife and his mother? I'm not sure. But
right.
We shall see. It'll be interesting what the next move is from the judge, from the defense attorneys, the prosecutor. I know Nick McClelland came out strong at that hearing saying, look, this has nothing to do with where he's staying. It has to do with where he is in the case, and mentioning several times that he admitted to killing Abby and Libby. And so he knew that. He kept bringing it up. And we'll see what happens next. What stood out to me too, Anna, I know it probably did for you too, was that conservation officer that he approached on the day of the murder saying, I was there, Richard Allen, and they named the conservation officer. And it's easy to blame, of course, in hindsight, but you can't help but wonder, why didn't he tell that to someone? And if he thought he was a witness, because that's what the word is, that this conservation officer thought that Rick Allen was a witness. I was down there, I didn't see anything. But as the years went on and as we saw what was on Libby's phone, why didn't he say, wait a minute, that looks like the guy that I spoke to that day? And we still don't have the answer to that.
Right. And for those of you who maybe are not up to speed on all parts of this case, what happened was on the day that the girls were on the bridge, Richard Allen was actually interviewed by a conservation officer, but he was seen as a witness. Did you see anyone while you were walking? Did you see the girls? And how that piece of information was not connected until years later. And the authorities have said there was some kind of a clerical error, that somehow he was missed. And this is a man who lives in the community and worked at the local CVS. So it does make you wonder what was missed there. But there was a little bit more information. You know, they've never released the cause of death, meaning how or the manner of the murder. But this time in this paperwork, they actually released a little bit more information. Police claim that they think they can hear the sound of a gun being cycled in the video that Libby recorded. That's the one of the man standing on the bridge with that navy blue jacket. They claim in this paperwork that a jacket matching that was found in Richard Allen's house when they served a search warrant. The other thing, Susan, what did you make of this? It's the first time. So they talked about how they believed a gun was used to abduct the girls, make them move off the bridge. But now we read in this in these court records about the possibility of a knife as well.
Yeah, finally, we do hear that they did die by a sharp object. We had heard through whispers, but now it is in fact a knife, and they took several knives from his home, not necessarily saying that implicates him, because there are several people who do have knives. But that was not so much shocking to me, but to see it finally be released, I kind of thought about the families and felt for them. Now they know. But I remember hearing constantly it was a brutal murder. So as you would know through the cases you have covered, it wouldn't necessarily be a gun. If I hear brutal murder, I feel like that's more personal. I didn't know what it was, but we had heard in the probable cause affidavit, the search warrant for Ron Logan, that it was a bloody crime scene. So I kind of assessed it was that it was a knife. But to finally see it, because they've been so tight-lipped, and I know that law enforcement has been criticized for years about this, but after I read the documents, and I felt that way with Superintendent Doug Carter throughout, feeling for him trying to do the best for this investigation, also being forthcoming with the family, trying to juggle all of this and do the best he can. But I thought to myself, if they had released that there was an unspent bullet in between the girls early on, would he have gotten rid of that gun? Because as we know in the search warrant, because in October, they found that file. They go to his house, or they call him, we learn in the paperwork. He comes with his wife, answers some questions, back to 2017, reiterating the same thing. I was on the bridge. What were you wearing? I was wearing the blue jacket. Then they had enough to get the search warrant to his house. If they had said, we have an unspent bullet, would he have gotten rid of all of that? I don't know, but it's shocking to me that he may have kept a lot of the items, the car, we know, the clothing, and possibly cell phone, and of course the gun.
Yeah, it's very interesting what they have said in these court records, and they've said before in a redacted version, was that they believe that the shell casing found at the murder scene matches the markings of a gun owned by Richard Allen, that they can ballistically analyze that and claim that it likely came from that gun. Here's the other thing that was very interesting. I don't remember reading this before, Susan. Records indicate that clothing was taken from the girls, a pair of underwear and a sock.
Mm-hmm. I know. I saw that. And I had, again, when you covered this for so long, and there's whispers, and some people have sources and know what they're talking about. Some do not. I had heard that. I wonder, I know that there was some clothing found in Deer Creek. Was this in the creek, or was this taken as some sort of souvenir? We don't know that at this point, but I know that they spent a lot of time in Richard Allen's home with the search warrant looking for things. And it's just eerie to think about, right, that was missing. And it makes you, because again, the family in the media, we didn't know much. And the authorities kept saying why they don't want false confessions. But the families also didn't know much at all. Yeah. So this is news to them too. So they're hearing it as we're hearing it. And Kelsey yesterday posted on social media, look, just know that the family sees your posts, meaning have a heart in terms of, you may not know the families, you may feel very separate to this case, and all you care about is what you want to get out. But just know that the sensitivity is there, and they're hearing this too. As the years go on, Abby and Libby, the major milestones in their life, they're missing. Graduation from high school. Where would they be now? Kelsey, she would have been in my wedding. I'm having a baby soon. She's not going to be there for that. So it's everything compounded. So as we're reading this, myself as well, I'm reading through all the documents and thinking that the family's reading this too now. The family's finally seeing and being able to piece together. And of course, wondering why wasn't he caught sooner, but also
that's the question. Susan, that is the question, because here's a man who admits to being on the bridge, to wearing clothes matching the description of the video taken by Libby.
And he came forward. He said, that was me. I was
there. Right. And so all of a sudden, like 5 years later, it's a great mystery. This man has been there the whole time. Again, presumed innocent until proven guilty, no matter what the court records say about his alleged admissions. He has entered a plea of not guilty. Before we go, there's just one more thing I want to talk about from the documents, because I found this interesting. There was a handwritten letter from an inmate who is there with Richard Allen. And it was dated April 11th. The inmate's name is Robert Baston. And he writes that Richard Allen is being abused and mistreated by the other inmates. And he says that the prison guards are taunting him and teasing him and suggesting that Richard Allen kill himself. So what he's describing is a pretty tough environment. No, look, we know prisons are not nice places to be. But he also claims that other staff at the prison are aware of this and may have recorded some of this inappropriate behavior, which he is alleging that had taken place at the hands of the guards. I don't know whether any of this is true or not. The man goes on to say that he's even attempted to commit suicide himself several times. But this was also released with the documents.
It's interesting. If this does go to trial, I would imagine he would be on the stand. I'm sure that someone has done a deep dive into that prisoner and looking at his background in terms of how many times. Is this the first time that this person has come forward with any sort of allegations against the prison? If not, it's going to be taken less seriously, I would imagine. But right, he's innocent until proven guilty. He's not a convicted man, no matter what the documents say, as you said. So he deserves to be treated the way everyone else, innocent until proven guilty, is expected to be treated. Now, the attorneys for Richard Allen are going full bore on this and saying the only reason he said those things, and since that April date where he allegedly admitted to his wife and mother that he killed Abby and Libby, he has not had any phone calls with his wife. But she was there at the June hearing, and it will be interesting to see what happens next. But this is a lot of information that we didn't have for almost 6 years. And there's still things that have been kept out of this based on what the prosecutor was telling the judge. But the trial date is set to start in January, and it will be interesting to see where it goes and what is said.
Yeah, well, this has been really interesting. These are definitely potential bombshells here. I mean, they are bombshells. Whether they're true or not is what we don't know. Susan, I so appreciate you taking the time today to kind of do a debrief with us on what this means and what it is. We know your book's coming out in September. You are an authority on this crime. So I hope as the case continues, we can count on you as a resource to help us understand what's going on.
Absolutely. I hope to be there with the family at the trial. And again, I say, if it does go to trial, I don't know. I mean, how much does this alleged confession, as we've seen the documents, play into what happens next? And I know throughout, the family would always say, of course, for Abby and Libby, they wanted justice. What does that look like? And I would imagine the prosecutor, who's been in contact constantly with the family members, is going to talk to them, and we'll see. After these documents, what happens next? We just don't know. But it's clear maybe why this wasn't released to the public, meaning that would this person have gotten rid of what could be key evidence in the trial?
Well, we will find out. Susan, thank you so much. Everyone else, this has been a special edition of True Crime Daily, the podcast. I'm your host, Ana Garcia. Thank you so much for joining us.